Hey!
Hey!
This is great. Sometimes
Hey!
internet
Good to
actually
see
works.
you.
Oh, I have a surprise for you. I'm changing glasses for every person. Remember?
Really?
D9.
It's like the D Nice changing his hat and the I see. Oh, I like that. Thank you.
Gold.
Okay. I like this choice for our conversation. Thank you.
Everyone, this is Piper Anderson. Thank you for joining my first ever attempt at hosting a thing. Thank you, Julia, for turning over the keys. And Piper, why don't you introduce yourself? What do you want folks to know about you?
Well, I mean, I'm a cultural organizer, facilitator. I'm the founder of Create Forward, a social impact consultancy based in New York, but we work with organizations nationally advancing equity and justice. And the co-founder of the Rikers Public Memory Project, a community truth and healing initiative.
I'm just gonna, sorry, you guys were looking at my nose. That's not a good look. I'm just gonna write a little comment here so that people know who you are. Apparently we are awesome Marxist lesbians. That's pretty hip. It's a very cutting edge / retro.
Yeah. Who knows?
News to me. Turns out once you get a lot of followers, you start to get some like real sweethearts in the mix.
Man.
Wow. Okay. At Piper Anderson. And so I clearly can't multitask at all. This is tough.
Meant to do that before. Okay, hear me better.
What are you taking care of over there?
I just turned off the air conditioning. I think I'm having trouble hearing me.
Okay. Let's see if that works. Does that work? Did I get your handle right? Yeah. Oh.
I see it.
Do you see it now? There you are.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. So I think this will work. So Piper and I met when we were both doing a residency at TED. And you were just starting up the organization that you're starting now. Tell us what have you created in Create Forward?
Oh my goodness. So many things. So that was 4 years ago that we did the residency. 5 years ago that I founded Create Forward. I came to that starting the company after having spent like 15 years working at this intersection of social justice, particularly, working on racial justice issues, the arts, and education. And wanted to also bring in a lot of the work that I was doing with communities around healing trauma, healing the collective trauma of racial injustice. And so one of the first projects that launched was Mass Story Lab, which is what I was doing the residency at TED around, which is this participatory storytelling project in which we were reckoning with the impact of incarceration by centering the stories of people who have been directly impacted by incarceration, by bringing folks together in a room who, were working within the system, community members who were just deeply concerned, family members, people who themselves have been incarcerated, and being in dialogue together, centering those stories, but then also designing solutions. And so we traveled with that project around the country for 2 years, 3 years really, and went to 13 cities, built tons of partnerships. And it really just got me thinking a lot about, kind of the role of storytelling as a tool for justice, as an instrument of justice. And it was like kind of a starting place of experimenting with ideas around that, and then kind of built on some frameworks around like human rights frameworks around storytelling, and which stories are one, a place, a way to kind of restore connection between people, right? When there's a loss of relationship, which is what trauma does, right? It breaks relationship, breaks connection, breaks a sense of safety and belonging. Then also was a chance to name, accountability, right? What accountability looks like for the harms of racial injustice, racial terror, and state violence. And then finally, to sort of, use stories to then point us in the direction of what justice actually looks like. And so that project, I learned so much from, and that's really kind of how the Rikers Memory Project came about. Was like after that, thinking about like, so how could we really apply the lessons of Mass Story Lab to, be a part of a campaign to, one, shut down one of the largest penal colonies in the world, an island nicknamed Torture Island. And second, make the case for reparative justice, make the case for repairing the harms, the generational harms of a place like Rikers existing in New York City and targeting specific neighborhoods, particularly Black neighborhoods, for generations. And so that's where the work has kind of evolved over the last couple of years. And there's kind of spin-offs of that, of other things that we do as well.
So from the perspective of someone who has expertise in narrative and storytelling and the power of that to shift our perceptions and lead to different outcomes, this is a really exciting moment, right? This uprising for racial justice. We're telling each other new stories about what's possible, and a history that's more complete. What have you noticed from the perspective of narrative happening right now?
Oh my God. Like as someone whose work is like all about culture shift, this is an extremely exciting time. I'm like, every day, like I'm just like, I'm a huge observer of cultural trends. And so I'm just like, one, is really excited about the way that, defund the police is taking hold. The fact that, abolition, something that I've been engaged with, thinking about, talking with people about, experimenting with for almost 20 years, is now hitting into the mainstream, right? Marion Cottom had an op-ed in New York Times about abolishing the police. That was not possible a year ago, certainly not 5 years ago. So it's a really exciting time where people are actually like, local, municipalities are actually thinking about what would it look like if we did not depend on the police to address every single issue, every single social issue in our cities. San Francisco has already done it. Minneapolis is thinking about it. So all over the country, people are really engaging with this in a real way, and that's powerful. And so, regardless of what happens this year or this month, we are moving in the direction of a kind of just like a huge transformation of our systems, of our culture, that will move us in the direction of people being able to live free of state violence and to be able to thrive. So I'm excited about that. I'm really excited about that.
And we're here on Julia's account because of Juneteenth. There's been this sort of renaissance in remembering and celebrating this holiday of liberation. What do you see as the role for that story, or how have you seen that conversation unfurling?
The conversation of
Juneteenth is should it be a holiday and we're going to celebrate this, like getting time off, know what it means, and all of it.
So that was something I totally was not expecting at all.
I did.
That really caught me by surprise. Like, I think I have a family group chat, and I have to say, like, we were, yesterday, like, happy Juneteenth. We've never done that, right? Like we've never, like as a family, been like, this is something, and then talked about reparations, right, over the family group. These are not conversations that we would normally be having. But yeah, but it's exciting because one, we don't have a holiday in this country, a moment in this country that acknowledges the end of slavery. First of all, there's a collective amnesia in this country. We don't even want to acknowledge that slavery was a thing. So to have a moment to acknowledge, to reflect
the
on
Civil War is about states' rights. What are you talking about?
Huh? Right? So, so to have a moment to acknowledge the end of slavery, to also be able to connect that to a very long legacy of freedom fighting in this country, amongst Black people for our rights, is huge and necessary. And I hope that it's the start of a broader conversation about reparations. So that's what I hope will happen next from this conversation, and from introducing Juneteenth as a holiday that companies will acknowledge. And but someone pointed out something I thought was really important though recently on Twitter about how if we did make this a national holiday, what about those, hourly workers who are mostly Black and brown who will end up working on Juneteenth while, white collar workers, white workers get to stay home, right? Like that contradiction is something also to think about. But I think it's an incredible moment, like in terms of just, the conversation about race. And, I've been getting, I'm sure you have as well, like just bombarded with emails from people who want me to come and speak to them about this. I don't even know what to do with that. I'm still figuring.
I didn't know there were this many podcasts in the world as the number I've been asked to speak on in the last 2 weeks. There's a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So your work is really focused around reparative justice and how do we shift the way we even think about these issues of incarceration and punishment. And this really is, it's a racial issue. It's the communities that are getting targeted that you're sort of working with on this restorative piece. So same questions I asked for Chris. What would you be doing if racism and white supremacy didn't exist?
I would be, Ayana.
Not a horrible.
Oof. Oh my goodness. Just thinking about it makes me tired. I would be making art. I would be making art. I would be, by training, I'm a writer and a theater artist. I would be making theater. I would be writing. I would be, I think there's always going to be the need for creating spaces of connection for people. So I would be gathering people. I'd be bringing people together. Mm-hmm. But I would mostly be making art, and I would be able to. Huh?
What kind of art?
Multimedia. I would be making film and and I'd probably be singing again. I'd also just be sleeping more and just going for long runs and just like, planting my feet on the earth and just staring up at a tree. Like I would do less. I would just overall do a whole lot less.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I've been thinking about in the context of the climate movement, the environment movement. I mean, the reason that I'm here on Julia's page is because I wrote an op-ed about race and climate for the Washington Post. And thank you. And talking about how much wisdom and brilliance and hours and dedication and problem solving we lose because of racism and white supremacy. I mean, that the fact that we have so many millions of Black people in America who really care about the climate crisis, are really worried, but then there's all this other stuff that we have to deal with, right? So how are you going to choose which existential crisis to devote your energy to. And so that is, it's such a waste. And it makes me really sad to think about the art that you haven't made.
I love that piece, and I've been sharing it like in some of the sessions I've been facilitating. That one, where you talk about dream, and I've been sharing it all over the place because I just think it's so spot on. Like you said, like Toni Morrison says, the function of racism is to distract us, is to keep us from doing our work. And just imagine all the art, all the gardens, all the cupcakes. I like to bake. Like, that's what I would do. I would bake. I would just be baking.
The world would be sweeter without white supremacy. Piper, tell us, how can we support your work?
You can go to RikersMemoryProject.org. So you can follow that project there. You can go to create-forward.com to learn about the work that we do at Create Forward. There's lots of opportunities to partner with us on some of the initiatives that we're developing right now. You can follow me on Instagram, which you have there, and on Twitter, I am Piper Anderson and the number 1. So someone else took Piper Anderson before I can get it. I don't know.
Terrible. Okay, I have one last question for you, which is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Oh my goodness. Well, I definitely want to give a shout out to you for, just for being a person. Someone gives you a mic and you're like, let me make it into a megaphone and bring all my folks on. So that I want to. Huh?
I miss my people, so thanks for coming to my living room.
I miss you too. I feel like you're always inviting me to things and I can never make it. It took a pandemic for me to make it to something. It's terrible. But
I'll take it.
But I just want to shout out like my team at the Rikers Memory Project and our partners. We partner with Just Leadership USA and the Humanities Action Lab. I want to definitely shout out them because we couldn't do it without their partnership. And all of our folks in the TED residency.
Yeah, shout out Divers for
doing incredible work. I will be watching and chiming in with Reggie and Rob later.
For the crew.
Yes.
Okay. Reggie's up next, actually. Speaking of Reggie, if I'll paste a description of Reggie in the comments here, and I'll try to find him. Thank you, Piper.
Thank you, Ayana.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.